It's a great pleasure for me to welcome you all to the research program conducted by the Sabaragamu University of Sri Lanka in association with Emerald Publishing and the Gulf Medical University, UAE. This is the 6th webinar of the Writing Impactful Research program. With a great respect, let me first welcome the speakers of the session, Professor Amila Jayaratne from the University of Sri Jawaharlal and Dr. Jayantha N. Devasiri from the Sabaragamu University of Sri Lanka. Professor P.G.S. Amila Jayaratne is a professor in marketing and the head of the Department of Marketing Management, Faculty of Management Studies and Commerce, University of Sri Jawaharlal. She has published in several international conferences and in high-ranked A-star index journals, including International Journal of Operations and Production Management and Production Planning and Control. She is also a reviewer for several A-star journals and was the chief editor for the Journal of the Faculty, Vidyodaya Journal of Management. She has been awarded by the International Journal of Operations and Production Control, Production Management, published by Emerald, for an outstanding research paper, and by the University of Sri Jawaharlal for her outstanding research performances, such as highest citation and highest H index of the faculty. Dr. Jayantha N. Devasiri is the editor-in-chief of the South Asian Journal of Marketing, published by Emerald Publishing. He is currently working as a senior lecturer at the Faculty of Management Studies, Sabaragamu University of Sri Lanka. He holds a Doctor of Philosophy from the University of Colombo, Sri Lanka, based on the methodology applied in the PhD study, and through a comparative review process, he has been awarded with the University of Michigan Mixed Methods Program International Student Scholarship Award. He has presented many research papers in international and local conferences and also published research articles in high-ranked index journals such as Managerial Finance, Qualitative Research in Financial Markets, International Journal of Qualitative Methods, and Journal of Public Affairs. He has received many awards for his publications, including Best Paper Awards in the conferences. He is currently serving as the brand ambassador at Emerald Publishing for its South Asian region. With the gratitude, let me also welcome Professor Atula Nyanapala, Dean of the Faculty of Management Studies, Sabaragamu University of Sri Lanka, and Professor M.S.M. Aslam, Chairman of the Research and Publication Unit of the Faculty of Management Studies, Sabaragamu University of Sri Lanka. Then, with the gratitude, let me welcome our regional coordinators of this webinar, Ms. Sangeeta Menon, Publishing Relationship Manager, Emerald Publishing, Professor Sudhir Rana from Gulf Medical University, and Professor Qaid Saeed, Gift University, Pakistan. In fact, they supported a lot in making this program a great success. Then, with the gratitude, let me also welcome Ms. Disha Lakhnapal, Regional Marketing Manager, Emerald Publishing Group. Then, with a great respect, I would like to welcome all the distinguished participants from Emerald Publishing, Gulf Medical University, and the Sabaragamu University of Sri Lanka. At last, but of course not least, audience mainly are academics from all the universities worldwide, senior professors, senior lecturers, students, and researchers are welcome to the program for making the session lively. Thank you. Professor Amila and Dr. Jayantha, it's over to you.
Thank you very much for sincere introduction. Is it okay for me to go ahead now? Jayantha, can you hear me? Dr. Devasiri?
Yes, you can go ahead, madam. No worries.
Yeah. So let's start the session, which is titled as the rationale for methodology selection. Of course, it's by myself. And first of all, let's see what are the learning objectives. these are the learning objectives of the today's session. At the end of this session, you will be able to explain the different research designs and also to understand the rationale for selecting qualitative research design, selecting quantitative research design, as well as the rationale for selecting mixed method research design. So these are the learning objectives of the today's session. In order to achieve that learning objectives, the session will roll under this outline. First of all, we'll have introduction, and then we'll discuss about what is a research design, and then the types of research designs. Then we comprehensively discuss about the rationale for selection of an appropriate research design. So how we select qualitative research design and what's the rationale for selecting the quantitative design as well as for mixed method design. So that is how it will roll shortly. Let me start with the introduction. As researchers, we know that the research is all about knowledge contribution. That is the ultimate purpose of doing a research. So to make a knowledge contribution, whatever the discipline, suppose that if it is marketing discipline, so that is a knowledge contribution to the marketing discipline, something like that. To make that kind of knowledge contribution, the very first thing what we have to do as researchers, we have to identify the research gaps. So once we identify the research gaps, based on that research gaps, we develop the research questions and the objectives accordingly. So how we get these research gaps and how we do the questions development, this part, of course, it's linked with the critical literature review and also critical investigation of a particular context. However, that has already been covered by a previous session for problematization as well as literature review side. Having said that, the research will go like that. And the other important thing we as researchers should be aware, every research is governed by a particular philosophy. Predominantly, it has three philosophies. Of course, there are some other classification as well, but mainly it's positivism, interpretivism, and pragmatism. In the positivism, the assumption is the researcher is independent from the research. So we make the reality objective, we keep the research objective. So that is the nature of positivism. That leads for deductive approach. So in the deductive approach, where we are testing the theory, and it goes with quantitative research designs. And the other paradigm is interpretivism. In interpretivism, we take the researcher is part of the research. So we see the reality, the researcher see the reality from the researcher's perspective, from his or her on justification and the interpretations. So that is the interpretivism paradigm, and that one links with the inductive approach, where we are developing the theory, and that goes with qualitative research design. And there is another major one, which is pragmatism. In pragmatism, which is a combination of these two assumptions, so then it goes with the mixed method. However, this the philosophy side also that's been discussed by one of the previous sessions. So hope that you have very comprehensive understanding on that. Having said that, we have the research questions right now in a researcher's hand. What is the next step? The next step is you have to have a plan to achieve that research objectives or to address the research questions. So there you have to decide like what the philosophy and what's the approach and what method you'll be using, whether it's experiment, survey, or action research, then whether you are using mono method or mixed method, or how you are going to do the data collection and analysis. That comprehensive plan is required. So that is being shown in this onion and it's reflect in the research design. So let's see what is a research design. So as I said earlier, it's an overall plan for connecting the conceptual research problems to the pertinent and achievable empirical research, where in summary, in nutshell, we can say research design, it's all about a plan which gives you how you answer the research questions or how you achieve the research objectives. Since it's a plan which provides the direction for procedure in the research. So once you have the design, then it will guide you how the the research will be conducted for the remaining steps. So let's see, what does it include? Research design basically consists of these components. The first of all, very importantly, we have to define the information needed. So which means like what information that we have to collect needs to be clarified in the research design. So from where that we get to know those information, that is linking with the research questions. Suppose that for a particular research, if we have like 3 research questions, then of course we need to collect the information with respect to all these 3 research questions, because the research design is all about addressing those research questions. That's the first thing, it needs to be included in the research design. Then the researcher should decide what is the type of the research, whether it's exploratory, descriptive, or causal. That one, this exploratory, descriptive, and causal one, we'll discuss shortly, probably in the next slide. So that is also needs to be documented in the research design. Then, especially with the quantitative design, so we have to specify how the constructs are being measured. So basically, we call it as operationalization. So what measurement tools that we have used and what are the scales that we have used to measure the constructs, that is included in the conceptual framework. So that part should also be included, especially in the quantitative research design. And also it should say how the questionnaire is developed, if it is a quantitative one. Otherwise, if it is a qualitative design, so you have to discuss how the interview protocol is being developed and how it's going to be tested and how we are going to conduct the interview. So that part needs to be elaborated under the research design. Go to the previous one, Dr. Devasiri. Okay. Yeah. And also, it needs to have explanation on the sampling process. What's the population, how you get the sample, what techniques that you'll be using in both cases, qualitative or quantitative. So you have to have document on that. At last, you have to briefly say, this is the analytical approach that we'll be using to address the research questions. So these are the components basically we have to include in the research design. Then let's see what are the types of research designs. In most of the research books that have 3 types: exploratory, descriptive, and causal. So exploratory means from the term itself, you are trying to explore something. You are trying to get insights or understanding of a particular phenomenon. Something like this. Suppose that a researcher wants to know why do people reluctant to get COVID vaccine in this pandemic situation in a country, maybe in Sri Lanka or in Pakistan, wherever. So it's try to explore the reason behind being reluctant to get that vaccine. So it's a kind of exploratory kind of a research. And exploratory research are qualitative research. And the other type is descriptive research, where in the descriptive research, again from the term itself, it's to describe a particular phenomena. If it is in the social sciences, then we are describing the social phenomena to that context. Suppose that if you want to examine the customer satisfaction of the hotel industry in a particular country, we are trying to describe the customer satisfaction. Then it's a descriptive kind of a research. Depending on the collection of data, it can be either cross-sectional or longitudinal. Cross-sectional means you are collecting the data from the sample only at a particular time. So it could be either single cross-sectional or multiple cross-sectional. Single cross-sectional means like you have the questionnaire, go to the sample, go to the respondents, collect the data and come back and analyze, and you make the interpretation. So that is only single cross-section. But if that incident happened in several times, like you collect the data, analyze, and then after some time you go to the field, either to the same sample or not, and then once again come back and analyze. So if it is happening in a multiple time, we call it as multiple cross-section. So there is another version which is longitudinal. The longitudinal means that social phenomena which you are expected to describe is going to observe for a longer period of time. I'll give an example for that as well. Suppose if a researcher wants to examine the television watching behavior of a particular community, maybe in another country, in Sri Lanka, something like that, then what would happen is they would select a sample of people, those who are watching the TV, and probably they might give the library to mark which program, in which channel, in the which time slots that the people are watching. Then if that is going to be observed for a longer period of time, say continuously, they are going to get that observation for maybe for 6 months or maybe for a year, then we are going to analyze, then it's longitudinal design. So in the longitudinal, whatever the social phenomena is observed continuously for a longer period of time. And also we have a descriptive research or quantitative research. And also we have a causal research where the researcher try to identify the cause and effect relationship. In that sense, exploratory one is qualitative, descriptive and causal one going with the quantitative research design. Dr. Jayasiri, I think we can go to the next slide. Here. So let's see, this is kind of a summary of types of research designs, which has quantitative designs, qualitative designs, and mixed method research designs. So let's see under each of these ones what is included. In a quantitative design, it can be either experimental or non-experimental. If it is experimental, that would be quasi-experiment or true experiment. And if it is non-experimental, that would be survey or causal comparative or correlational design. That's about the quantitative design, which we'll be discussing those ones with the example shortly. And the other one is qualitative design, which has all the case studies, narrative research, phenomenological research, grounded theory, the ethnographic research, action research, that's all coming under qualitative designs. And also we do have mixed method designs as well, sequential explanatory design, sequential exploratory design, sequential transformative design, concurrent triangulation strategy, concurrent embedded strategy, and concurrent transformative strategy. So each of these ones will be discussed with the examples by ourselves. So let's see what is quantitative research design. So it's a techniques and measurements that produce quantifiable and discrete value. So we are trying to quantify a social phenomena that mainly from empirical observations and the measures. So that is being governed by the positivism, where it's regard the world as being outside of researchers. And there is an objective reality that is important. So long as it's positivist with the quantitative design, we believe that the reality is objective, which is free from the researcher and which is independent of the observations. So of course, in the quantitative research design, we do have hypothesis testing, and mainly we use mathematical and statistical data analytical approach. And from this design, we make the conclusions as per the research questions. For each and every research question, we make the conclusion. So these are the ones that has come across something like that. Then within the quantitative design, there is one type called experimental research. It's an investigation where one or more independent variables is manipulated to measure. So that is important. That's in experimental, that is being manipulated to measure the effect on one or more dependent variables. So where we see we make the small changes to the independent variable, either one or more Am I audible?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay. So the earlier, was it an interruption? No.
There was a, 10 to 20-second delay.
All right. Okay, fine. So in summary, the experimental research, it's basically you're manipulating independent variables and see whether what is the impact on the dependent variable in nutshell. So it is a cause and effect relationship that we are going to investigate. Let's see what are the types of experimental design. Basically, as per Creswell, we can see three types: pre-experimental design, quasi-experiment, or true experiment. In the pre-experimental design, the researcher studies a single group and provide an intervention during the experiment. It doesn't have any control group to compare with the experiment group. So I'll give an example to make you more easier to understand. Something like this. Suppose that that's mostly happening in the educational research. Suppose a researcher wants to examine the IT knowledge of the school students. What the researcher would do is, for that student, the IT related course unit is being taught throughout the semester. Then at the end of the semester, we'll have a test to check their IT knowledge. So where it is having only one group and see whether what is the cause and effect relationship. So that's the nature of pre-experimental design. The quasi-experiment means where the researcher use both control and experiment group. But here the thing is, when they are assigning the participants among these two groups, control and experimental, they are not being randomized. In a quasi-experiment, something like this. Suppose if a researcher wants to see the effectiveness of after-school program for the subject, maybe for mathematics or something like that, and how does it have the effect on their gradings. So what the researcher can do is, researcher will take the students and put them into two groups. One is control group and the other one is experimental group. So for the experimental group, after school program, suppose that if it is for mathematics after school program is going to be conducted, but not for the other group, control group, that treatment has not been given. Then after that, if they are checking the gradings of these two groups, the students, those who are in these two groups, if we see that those who are in the experiment group, if their performance are better than the students, those who are in the control group, then we say that it may be because of that after school maths program. So that's the kind of a quasi experiment. The true experiment means like it's more or less the same as quasi experiment, but here the only difference is when we are assigning the participants among the control and the experiment group, the randomization needs to be achieved. That means we have to keep the participants equal in control and experimental group in all the aspects. Only difference is the treatment, which is the after school program. So it is quite challenging in social sciences because it's very difficult for us to have the equality among the people whenever they are assigning into groups. So that's all about experimental design. So that's coming under quantitative research design. And there is another path which is non-experimental. And within the non-experimental, one of the common one, especially in the social sciences, it's a survey method. In the survey method, basically what's happening is we have the population. Out of the population, we select a sample in a way that it represents the population. Then we study the sample, maybe a particular phenomena we are studying, and then we make the inferences to the population. We make the conclusion about the entire population. So that is the nature of survey method. Of course, it's descriptive in nature. And as I said earlier, which has either cross-sectional or longitudinal, depending on how we are going to collect the data. If it is just collection at a particular point, it's cross-sectional. But if you are taking the behavior for a longer period of time, then it's longitudinal. Of course, in this survey method, we deals with a large data set, but being restricted by the sampling errors. like example like this. Suppose a researcher wants to examine the determinants of mobile payment adaptation during the pandemic, maybe evidence from Nepal. So there we have to take the sample, those who are using mobile payment, and then we have to examine the determinants, what made them to use or adopt mobile payments in this pandemic. So you are trying to make the inferentials about the entire population, though you are studying a sample in Nepal context. So that is how the survey method will go. Then also we have another two versions under non-experimental quantitative designs, causal comparative research and correlational design. In causal comparative, researcher compares two or more groups with respect to cause, which has already occurred. So that is the thing, it has already been occurred, and trying to see the in comparison with two or more groups. Here we see the relationship between independent and dependent variable after a particular event occurred. So in this case, we use two or more groups of individuals. I'll give an example for that. Suppose a researcher wants to investigate whether completing a computer-based accounting program has an impact on accounting score of a particular exam. Then what we have to do is we have to take the students, those who have done the computer-based accounting program and those who have not done the computer-based accounting program. Then we'll take their accounting score and see whether are they equal or they are different. If we see the difference of the people, those who have already completed computer-based accounting program, that means, so we can infer, we can say that it may be because of the computer-based accounting program that they are performing well. So that is a causal comparative kind of research. And there is this is the last version of quantitative design, the correlational design, where the researcher try to see the association among the variables for sets of scores, where we mainly use correlational statistics to see the correlations. The example, the same thing, the same as the previous example we can say, but in this case, we are not taking two groups, it's just one group. What we are doing is we are getting the perception of the students on computer-based accounting program that they have completed, and that is trying to associate with the accounting score. So in that sense, you are trying to see, is there any association between computer-based accounting program and the accounting score? So that is how this correlational and the causal comparative research design should go ahead. Now let's see what we have to know about the qualitative research designs. And of course, it's emphasized the exploring and understanding of a social phenomena, if it is in the social sciences, which is very unstructured and also very open-minded, and it's being governed by the interpretism paradigm, where we believe the researcher is the part of the research, so we are giving the value to the researchers on interpretation. This is the example. This paper, it's been published in IGOPM, International Journal of Operations and Production Management, which is a A-star journal in operations management discipline. It's Index 1, Web of Science Index, and the publisher is Emerald. In this paper, what we have done was, it's on supply network structures in the international clothing industry, the differences across the retailer types. Where in this case, we have explored 6 types of supply network structures. That's the first time it's been explored for the international clothing industry. So that is the knowledge contribution, which is a kind of exploratory nature of research. So that's why it's coming under qualitative research design. And also, once we have explored that 6 types of supply network structures, then we have discussed how it's been managed by the different retailers. So it's more understanding about those supply network structures as per the different retailer types. So this kind of research, It's called as, go to the previous one, this kind of research, it's called as qualitative research designs. And also I want to highlight that it is being accepted by one of the leading high ranked journals. So which means you have a room for that kind of journal, though you are doing a qualitative research. Next one. And in the qualitative one, we have some like techniques that we can use, case study and narrative research. The case study, where we have in-depth study on maybe a person or a group or an event or an organization. However, in the case study, we have to nearly examine almost all the aspects of that subject life as well as the history. Something like this. So in the case study, we want to have very comprehensive and detailed understanding on something. Something like this, like if we want to see, once we take one of the leading apparel manufacturing company in Sri Lanka or in India, we want to see how that company has introduced lean manufacturing system, which is a Japanese concept in operations management. So how they have implemented lean manufacturing system to their company. So for that one, it needs to have investigation in all the aspects. So what made them to go for lean and what support it? So what are the bottlenecks that they face and how they rectify those bottlenecks? Who are the supporting people and what organizational issues raise? And what is the support from the supply chain? So all these aspects you have to interpret. Then by reading it, another apparel manufacturer can make a lesson out of it. So that is the nature of a case study, qualitative design. Narrative design, it's the research that studies the lives of individuals and asks them to provide stories about their life. So we let the people to talk about their story. Then the information is organized and retold by the researcher. So you get the information probably from the interview or something like that. And then the researcher is going to retell that information. So which is a narrative combination of the views from the participants' life with those of the researcher's life. Something like this. Suppose when you want to explore the experience of a CEO in his or her corporate life, you let the CEO to speak as a researcher and you get that insights and you are telling it. You make it narrative by taking your own perceptions as well. The same thing we can say, we can let the soldier to share the experience in war situation. So then again, if it is narrative, get that information and the researcher is going to reclaim it by combining both perspectives. Next one, please. Then the other one is phenomenological research, which is describe the life experience of individuals about the phenomena as described by the participants. So that is the key term here, that needs to be as per the descriptions of the participant. But in the narrative, we get the information, but the researcher is retelling. But in this case, it's not the case. You have to tell it as it is. So it's we are going to get the experience for several individuals who have all experienced the same phenomenon. So probably from the interviews, we get that information, transcribed it, and we analyze significant statement. From those statements, we generate the meaning units. Then after that, we develop the description of the story. So that is how it goes. And something like this. Suppose a research like this, how do students experience and understand the university presidency? How does such understanding shape the college experience? That needs to be go with the phenomenological research, because suppose that you want to get that done, you have to take the university student, those who are close to the passing out, and they are being involved in extracurricular activities or student organization activities, then they are being exposed to the same experience. Then you are investigating the experience and understanding of the university presidency, and also let them talk how such understanding shaped their college experience. Then whenever we are interpreting the results, so you have to interpret from the student's perspective. So that's what here it says, describe as per the participants. That is something crucial in criminological research, unlike in the narrative one. The grounded theory. So in the grounded theory, basically researcher derives a general abstract theory of a process, action, or interaction grounded in the views of participants. So that is important. So whatever we are doing, that is being grounded in the view of the participants. So that means in a particular ground, from the participants, those who are in that ground, we are trying to explore something. So that is the way that we go with the grounded theory. Here, it has systematic steps where once we collect the information, probably from interview, so then we transcribe them, and then we summarize. Then through the summary, we generate the categories of information. That is what we call open coding. Then selecting one of the categories and position it within the theoretical model. So that is what is called axial coding. Then after that, we develop the story from the interconnections of these categories. That is what it's called selective coding. So the grounded theory should go ahead with these systematic steps of open coding, axial coding, and selective coding. The research like this. When a researcher wants to develop theoretical framework for conceptualizing organizational issues, that goes around the adaptation and use of information technology, innovations, and applications. So that is goes with the ground, like what are the organizational issues? That organizational issues limit to that ground. That basically that organization face when they're adapting and using IT, innovation, and application. So that needs to be conceptualized in the form of a theoretical framework. So such kind of research can be go ahead with the grounded theory. And there is one common one, it's ethnographic research. In the ethnographic research, the researcher studies the shared pattern of behavior, language, and actions of an intact cultural group in a natural setting over a period of time. That is the key term. This is happening in a natural setting over a period of time. So here they study a community of people to understand how the members make sense of social interactions. That's mainly this is being used in humanities and social sciences. The challenge here is the researcher taking a part in the research, talking and doing things with the participants in their real life situation for a longer period of time. So that's why it needs to happen in a natural setting and of course for a longer period of time. So the researcher is observing by being in that context the behavior or some social phenomena over a period of time. Of course, it is in the longitudinal perspective. Something like this. Suppose a researcher wants to investigate the behavior of sales representatives, how they behave in the field, how they talk to customer, how they introduce their product, and how they deal with the problems, and how they maintain the relationship among the partners, and how they work with the superiors, subordinates, peers. So then if you want to investigate, if you want to get the real behavior of the sales representative, if the researcher also become a sales representative and work for a company for a longer period of time while being in the field with the sales representative, then after that the researcher come out and say that this is how the behavior of the sales representative when they are in the field. Because you also were there in the field, now you are telling the story. It's ethnographic research. And the action research, which is to come up with an immediate and concrete solution to a problem in an organizational setting. So basically in action research, we try to solve a problem in the hand. So where it's not concerned with whether the results can be generalized to any other settings. That is the major criticism against this action research, because it is having only the the minimum contribution to the knowledge. Something like this, say in a company, in a country like in Sri Lanka or wherever. So then in that company, there is a high labor turnover. So then what to do to stop that labor turnover? So that sometimes you have to explore the reasons. But then by looking at the reasons, you have to provide a solution. Okay, if we stop these ones, if we rectify these issues, we can have a lower labor turnover. But that is relevant only for that context, probably for that company. So then it has only a marginal contribution to the knowledge. So that's about the action research. I hope now you have the better understanding about what is research design and what are the types of research design and the what is there in the quantitative designs and the qualitative design. Then we are going to the mixed method research that will be handled by Dr. Devasiri. Dr. Devasiri, it's over to you.
So thank you very much, Professor Amila. So now we are going to discuss about what do you mean by mixed methods research, what are the designs we can see. In 1959, Campbell and Fiske laid the foundation for the mixed method research, emphasizing the need for the mixing qualitative and quantitative approaches in a single approach. But the paradigmatic differences among methodological approaches are being widely discussed by the researchers when mixing two different methodologies in a single study. To provide a justification for the mixed method study, Johnson et al. In 2010 emphasized using multiple methodologies within an overarching paradigm as a way of conducting mixed method research by negotiating paradigmatic differences, making it possible to argue that methodological paradigms do not always pave the way towards a particular research methods. Hence, so we can argue that despite methodological differences in the assumptions, the combination of quantitative and qualitative methods in a single study is possible while employing an overarching paradigmatic model. So when we are doing the mixed method research, so the problem is start at the first phase of the data collection and analysis, whether to proceed with quantitative data collection and analysis first or to proceed with qualitative data collection and analysis first or to proceed with concurrent basis. So how to select the research design, that is a real problem. So in order to answer that question, Creswell emphasized on 4 criteria in order to design mixed method research approach. So those are timing, weighting, mixing and theorizing. Timing, that is basically refers to determining when to collect quantitative and qualitative data and whether to proceed with the sequential or concurrent phases. So the selection of the timing is basically based on researcher's intention and research problem at hand. For an example, if the qualitative data is collected and analyzed first, the intention is to explore the phenomenon first. For an example, if you need to explore something, you will develop an instrument. So at the second phase, what we will do is we can test the instrument. When data collection is concurrent, the implementation should be simultaneous. Weighting, that is refers to whether the priority is given to quantitative or qualitative design, and it is depending on researcher's intention, interest, audience and research problem also. For an example, if you need to explore something first, the first methodological approach is qualitative, so the weightage should be given to the qualitative phase. When it comes to mixing, mixing refers to the implementation of how to mix data collection and analysis based on multiple methods. Here, Creswell emphasized on 3 phases for mixing: connected mix method, integrating data and embedded data. So in the connected mix methods, the data collection and analysis is in a sequential manner. In the integrating stage, the data collection and analysis of both approaches are concurrent. Under the embedded data, the aim is to collect one type of data while the other provides the supporting information. Theorizing, that is basically referring to the use of theoretical perspectives to guide the overall approach. Even though these four factors or four criteria do not exhaust all the possibilities, 6 major research designs were derived by Creswell. Here you can see there are 6 major mixed method research designs: sequential explanatory design, sequential exploratory design, sequential transformative design, concurrent triangulation strategy, concurrent embedded strategy, and concurrent transformative strategy. Let's discuss these approaches one by one. When we look at the sequential explanatory design, so as you can see on the table, explanatory is here. Here, that is for the follow-up explanations. Sequential explanatory, as you are aware, here the quantitative data collection and analysis takes place followed by the qualitative approach. It is useful when researchers have a strong quantitative learnings. So here, as I explained earlier, quantitative part is highly weighted, usually quantitative, and also with that regard to timing, so the quantitative phase followed by the qualitative phase. So that is about the explanatory design, sequential explanatory design. When it comes to sequential exploratory design, qualitative data collection and analysis takes place first, followed by the quantitative phase. Here, this is important when you need to explore something first and then test the same thing. For instance, development of an instrument, as I discussed earlier, through the qualitative phase and testing it through the quantitative phase. Here, it is identified that exploratory, under the exploratory design, so variants are instrument development, then timing, so qualitative followed by the quantitative approach. So weightage, the maximum weightage is given to the qualitative phase. So the third research design is the sequential transformative design. So this is a similar design to sequential explanatory and sequential exploratory, other than timing, weighting, mixing. So the theorizing part is weighted here, which means that sequential transformative design, so it guided by a strong theoretical backing. For an example, if your research design is guided by a kind of a highly theoretical perspective, so we can get it under the sequential transformative design. When it comes to concurrent triangulation strategy, so in order to achieve analytical convergence, confirmation and corroboration, both quantitative and qualitative data collection and analysis should occur concurrently in this phase. So for an example, if you think about this variant, that is in order to achieve the convergence and the confirmation, timing, so both quantitative and qualitative at the same time, weightage is given usually as equal. So that is all about the concurrent triangulation strategy. So when it comes to concurrent embedded strategy, so unlike concurrent triangulation strategy, the concurrent embedded strategy is focused on a single phase of both quantitative and qualitative data collection. Hence, this approach basically is less time consuming. Here, the priority is given to the researcher's primary aims while other methods play a supporting role. For an example, so if you think about doing a quantitative research, having a large sample, you can do a qualitative study within that quantitative research by interviewing few of this large sample using the purposive sample method. Here, the overall approach is embedded. So we call it as concurrent embedded strategy. So the last approach is that concurrent transformative strategy. This strategy entails the concurrent collection of both quantitative and qualitative data guided by a strong theoretical support. Similar to sequential transformative strategy, here the theoretical backing is for a concurrent approach where qualitative and quantitative data collection and analysis happen in a concurrent manner. Let's look at the rationale now, rationale for selecting the research design. So the decision start when reviewing the literature to explore the research gaps until derive specific research questions or objectives. Generally, research questions or objectives guide which research design to select. In addition to that, researchers' experience, resource availability, and audience play a vital role in determining the research design. We will explain the role of these factors towards the end of this session. Now, let's look at what is the rationale for selecting quantitative research design. So, Professor Amila, it is over to you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Devasiri. Having said that, we have the research questions. Then we have to decide what should be the appropriate research design to address that research questions. As Dr. Devasiri rightly mentioned, that's the selection of the appropriate research design. It's mainly governed by the research questions. So let's see how does it happen in the quantitative research design. So we know that in quantitative design, that would be either descriptive nature, comparative nature, also relationship kind of quantitative research. In descriptive quantitative research, we are trying to quantify something, quantify a social phenomenon, the customer satisfaction, the brand loyalty, whatever. So in that kind of a scenario, the research question should be drafted like this. So that means in another way around, for this kind of research questions, we need to have descriptive research design in quantitative. If the research questions start with what is or what are, something like this. What are the reasons that graduate students give for enrolling in a distance education course? So we are trying to, in that kind of research question, that is to describe the reasons for that graduate students to enroll in a distance education course. So since the research question is in descriptive nature, you want to have a descriptive quantitative research design. Now let's see the other one, comparative. In the comparative research design, what we do is we compare two or more groups on some outcome variable. So we try to compare, or we try to see the difference. So the research questions should have to have the wordings like differ or compare, like that. Something, the example that I have included here, what is the difference in levels of statistics annexity between undergraduate male and female students? Where in this kind of research question, try to compare and see the difference between male and female students, undergraduate students, in terms of statistics annexity. So the research questions worded in a way of comparative, so that it needs to have comparative quantitative research design. So that's how the research question says. And the last version, which is a relationship, it's concerned with the trends between or among two or more variables. So we can see in that kind of the scenario, we can see these wordings in the research questions, like relate, relationship, association, trend, effect, influence, impact. So if the research question is coming with these wordings, then it needs to have a relationship kind of quantitative research design. I'll give an example here. Two examples are being given. If the research question, it's something like this: what is the relationship between age and job satisfaction among registered nurses? So here we try to see the association. Is there any relationship between age of the nurses and their job satisfaction? So from the wordings itself, that's demand for relationship kind of a quantitative research design. So the most appropriate one is relationship quantitative research design. Something like this: what is the influence of customer satisfaction on brand evangelism? So here we are talking about the influence of customer satisfaction on the brand evangelism. So we see whether there is a positive significant impact or something like that. Then that is also we are trying to, from the research question itself, that articulated as a relationship kind of investigation is required, so that it is required to have the relationship kind of quantitative research design. So that's how we are matching the research questions with the research design in the quantitative research designs. So let's see how about the qualitative situation. Okay, first of all, I'll give some examples for that quantitative as well. These are the selected two papers, both published in Managerial Finance, which is the Index reputed journal. Its publisher is Emerald. In one study, we have examined the determinants of the evidence, policy evidence from the emerging and developing market. Here, but it has done was, we have the research question, it's stated like, what are the determinants for propensity to pay dividends and for the dividends payout in this emerging and developing market. Here we have taken the Sri Lankan context. Since the research question is worded as what are the determinants, the intention is for us to explain what are the determinants that make them for the propensity to pay dividends as well as a dividend payout. For this case, it's been done with the descriptive, the quantitative approach with the use of the secondary data, the published financial data. And also from the same study, another the subsection was created, the dividends policy determinants of Sri Lankan firms. Here it's being used the triangulation approach, but in the previous paper it's not the triangulation, just one data set, but in this case the triangulation approach has been used. Both are publishing reputed journals. So those are the examples how the research questions will lead for research design in quantitative research designs. So let's see how about the scenario for the qualitative research design. Of course, the qualitative research are very open-ended, evolving, and non-directional. So if the research question it's having words like this: to seek, to discover, to explore something, or describe experience or something, as well as some wordings like what, why, and how. If the research question it's been drafted in such a way that needs to have the qualitative research design. I have put some examples, something like this: what does it mean to teachers to win a teaching award? So I think as you do remember in the quantitative one also we use a term called what in the research question. But in qualitative ways also we can use the term what, but in different perspectives. In quantitative we say that what are the determinants or something like that. So we are trying to describe the determinants. But in this case, what does it mean? So we try to explore the meaning. So then, though the what term is common to both qualitative and quantitative, if we take the research questions, this is more needed qualitative kind of a research design. And also, how do GAN leaders select GAN members? So it's a process that you have to explain. You have to explore in detail, comprehensively, how the GAN leaders get select the GAN members. So of course, it needs the qualitative research design. And some scenario like this, why do companies pay dividends? So there we try to disclose the reason for companies, maybe public quoted companies in Sri Lanka or in India, wherever, why do they pay dividends? So that needs the exploratory kind of research. So its qualitative research design is required. So I'll stress an example here. So this is a paper that's been done in qualitative research design and published in Production Planning and Control, which is a 4-star journal in operations management discipline, and it's the Talon Francis one. In this study, what we did was we investigate the sustainable collaborative supply networks in the international clothing industry as a comparative analysis of 2 retailers, where in this study, the research questions, what we try to answer, what we have already answered in the paper, how different retailers giving the priority for sustainable issues in collaborative supply networks where they are operating. So since the research question and the intention is to explain how does it happen, so of course it needs to have qualitative design. So that's how this is gone. And one more thing which I would like to stress here. Now I hope you have an understanding about how specific research questions should be worded and how those research questions lead for selection of appropriate research design, whether it's qualitative or quantitative. And many researchers are making mistakes. So I thought of stressing here that mistake as well. Researchers used to use these terms for the research questions like do, does, are, is. However, these words are not allowed in developing research questions because it's lead for obvious answer of yes or no, something like this. Is there an impact of advertising on brand evangelism? Is there an impact? So then either yes or no. So this is not something acceptable mode of writing a research question. Instead, if it is wrong, what should it be like? So instead of is there, we can say what is the impact of advertising on brand evangelism? So it's the is there wordings replace what is wordings. So in such a way, we have to draft our research questions very carefully, and from that research questions that rationalize what design we have to go ahead with. Let's move to the mixed method scenario. Then how does the mixed method research questions will lead for mixed method designs? It's handled by the Dr. Devasiri. Dr. Devasiri, it's over to you.
Thank you very much, Professor Amila. So now we are going to discuss about the rationale for selecting mixed methods research design. So before going to the rational part, so I would like to emphasize on one paper. Recently, we have conducted the study to determine the rationale and design for mixed method research in the finance discipline. So as you can see in the screen, so this study is published in a Social Science Citation Index journal, namely International Journal of Qualitative Methods, published by Sage Publishers. So this study discusses the rationale for quantitative, qualitative, and mixed method research designs. Hence, we highly recommend you to refer these if you are especially focusing on mixed methods research approach. Let's discuss about the research questions which drive the mixed method research design. Here, before discussing research question for each and every design, I would like to highlight that the key factors such as timing, weighting, mixing, and theorizing affecting the design selection. In addition to this criteria, the nature and type of the research question, researcher's intention, experience, and audience play a vital role in determining the research design. When it comes to the sequential explanatory design, the first research design, you already aware that this approach is quantitatively weighted and quantitative data is followed by the qualitative approach. For an example, if you take this research question, what is the difference in perceived barriers to reading empirical research articles between graduate students with low level of reading comprehension and those with high level of reading comprehension? Here, quantitative component generate the independent variable, which is the reading comprehension, and qualitative component generate the dependent variable, which is perceived barriers to reading. Here the quantitative phase is descriptive and qualitative phase is phenomenological. However, the overall approach here is sequential explanatory design, because the quantitative phase would inform the qualitative phase. That is, researchers should administer a test of reading comprehension, rank these comprehension scores, and then purposefully select students who are high level and low level. Then students should be interviewed and asked about their perceptions of barriers that prevent them from reading empirical research articles. Hence, this design is coming under the sequential explanatory design. As you can see, as I clearly explained, the research question itself paved the way towards designing the mixed method research design. When it comes to the sequential exploratory design, here the weightage is given to the qualitative phase and qualitative approach is followed by the quantitative approach here. For instance, if we take the stated research question, what is the difference in general mood among male and female investors regarding stock price fluctuations? First, the researcher should develop an instrument to measure the investor's general mood or general attitude of stock price fluctuations. If you do not have a such model, first you have to do is you have to develop instrument in order to measure this general attitude. Then you can test this using female and male investors, and further we can determine the difference through an independent sample t-test. Here what you can do is, at the first phase you can develop the instrument, then test it using the male and female investors. Then you can determine the difference having that those scores using an independent sample t-test using the quantitative approach. Here you can see that qualitative approach is followed by the quantitative approach. For the qualitative approach, we have given a more weightage. Hence, that is exploratory. So this approach, we call it as sequential exploratory design. When it comes to sequential transformative design, as you already know, the research is guided by a strong theoretical perspective in the sequential transformative design. If we take the state of research question here, how management decide the payout policy and what factors affect their decisions. Actually, you can see here there are two questions in one research question. That is absolutely fine. That is absolutely fine. It is important to highlight that we can develop mixed methods research questions as two separate quantitatively and qualitatively bounded research questions. In this study, in this research question, qualitative approach is taken to determine how management decide payout policy, and quantitative approach is considered to determine what factors affect their decisions. Most of the financial, researchers or lecturers, they know that the payout policy is driven by a strong theoretical perspective that is consisted of multiple theories such as signaling, free cash flow, agency, life cycle, and so on. Hence, the overall approach here is sequential transformative design. You can either proceed with exploratory or explanatory, but it should be transformative, meaning that it should be guided by a strong theoretical perspective. In the concurrent triangulation design, I would like to take the example we have taken for the explanatory design. Explanatory design. Here we have taken an example. Here at that time, we didn't know about the low level of reading comprehension and high level of reading comprehension. If you already know this fact, what you can do is we can follow up with the concurrent triangulation design by interweaving the low and high performing students in a single pace. That is with special reference to barriers that prevent them from reading empirical research articles. So, as you are already aware, the concurrent embedded design is focusing on a single pace of both quantitative and qualitative data collection and analysis. If you have a limited time and limited resources, you can proceed with this design. For instance, we can take the stated research question, what are the factors affecting adoption of mobile banking and why do customers use mobile banking during the pandemic? Here, what we can do is we can do a quantitative survey to determine the factors affecting mobile payment adoption using a larger sample. And in the meantime, we can interview few of the main sample using purposive sampling or either any other sampling technique in order to determine why they use mobile banking during the pandemic. So here a subset is interviewed. That's why we call it as concurrent embedded design. So the data collection and analysis of both qualitative and quantitative approaches were taken at a single pace. The last research design, that is the concurrent transformative strategy. So here, similar to the sequential transformative strategy, here also this strategy is guided by a strong theoretical backing. If we take the stated research question here, what is the relationship between health-related behavior and mobile payment adoption during the pandemic? The two variables are backed by strong theoretical perspectives. For an example, health-related behavior can be measured using the health belief model, whereas mobile payment adoption can be measured using technological acceptance model, theory of reason action, theory of planned behavior, and so on. This study can be concurrently conducted with a strong theoretical perspective. Hence, it is coming under the concurrent transformative strategy. I would like to emphasize that these research approaches and the research questions are not heavily investigated during the past period. There is a paucity of studies emphasizing what are the research questions for each of these strategies. So that there is a little, research papers. I could remember Ombuasi in 2006. He has developed a paper published in a Sage journal. What I could do is I'll share those information when we are distributing our certificates. So we would like to highlight that there are specific reasons for the selection of other triangulation approaches as well. Here you can see that there are 4 other triangulation approaches other than the mixed method approach. Mixed method approach, we call it as between the method triangulation. Between the method triangulation. So other 4 approaches are data triangulation, investigative triangulation, theoretical triangulation, and multiple triangulation. So I stated that there are specific reasons for selection of these triangulation approaches. For instance, if you take the data triangulation, it refers to the use of similar type of data sources. It could be either qualitative or quantitative on time, person, and space in a single study. Not as in the mixed method concurrent triangulation approach. Here we have to take similar type of data sources. If it is quantitative data, you can take both published data which is gathered from financial statement along with survey data. Both are quantitative in nature. So we call it as the data triangulation. If you take the data triangulation, here Densin and Jick, Densin in, I could remember the year 1979 it could be, and Jick in 2006, we will share this information in a mail, all the references. Emphasize this method as the within the method triangulation. Data triangulation, they call it as within the method triangulation. So where 2 methods in the same tradition are being carried out for complementary and complementary purposes. So the reason for triangulation is that complementary and complementary service purposes. In addition to that, using data triangulation, weaknesses of one data source could be compensated by the other method. It will ultimately enhance the validity and reliability of the findings. I would like to highlight that there is a high demand basically for the methodologically innovative research studies in the market. For instance, we have conducted 3 different studies using data triangulation approach and published in highly reputed journals such as Managerial Finance. Here you can see that paper, and also Qualitative Research in Financial Market and Journal of Public Affairs published by Wiley. In the first paper, in this paper, Dividend Policy Determinants of Sri Lankan Firms, a data triangulation approach. Here we utilize data triangulation with the purpose of achieving validity, completeness, and confirmation over the findings. Further, when we utilize secondary data in capturing abstract concepts such as investors' preference, if you take investors' preference, it is a determinant of dividend policy. So, if we are capturing these abstract concept through proxy variables, we believe that it hinders the validity of the findings. Hence, in order to overcome such issues, we utilize the data triangulation by using a survey to capture abstract concept in a correct manner. Here we use both survey data and published data, then we triangulated in order to have more validity, confirmation, and corroboration over the findings. Hence, the weaknesses of published data is compensated by the use of survey data here. We utilize data triangulation in the second and third paper. These also based on data triangulation in order to achieve collaboration, high level of validity, and completeness over the findings. In addition to that, if you take corporate governance and corporate social responsibility itself, those are abstract concepts in nature. So if you take corporate social responsibility, we determine the corporate social responsibility in finance or accounting by measuring it through the expenditure for CSR. Either it could be social, either it could be economical, it could be either environmental. So here we argue that we cannot measure the corporate social responsibility using instruments, and we develop and survey-based instrument in order to capture the corporate social responsibility. Here we use both published data and survey data in order to proceed with the data triangulation approach. When it comes to the investigator triangulation, the third triangulation method, so investigator triangulation could be identified as a type of triangulation which requires more than one observer, one interviewer, one investigator or data analyst whose primary responsibility is to collect and interpret data without prior discussion with others. Here, the investigator triangulation is applied to achieve cross-investigator confirmation, minimizing intrinsic biases of the investigators, strengthening the validity and reliability, and to enhance the robustness of the findings. So the theoretical triangulation refers to the application of multiple theories or hypotheses concurrently with the purpose of explaining the same phenomenon. Here the purpose is to apply multiple lenses and indicators in conceptualization and to provide sound theoretical support to research design and analysis which provide plurality in theory with complementary findings. Here it is important to highlight that, so when triangulating the theories, you should take the theories which has similar set of assumptions, same set of assumptions. If the assumptions are competing, so you cannot triangulate. For an example, if you take dividend irrelevance theory, that captures in a perfect market, whereas relevance theory, that theory does not proceed with that assumption. So when proceeding with theoretical triangulation, you have to have same set of assumptions with the theories. So multiple triangulation refers to the use of more than one triangulation approach in a single study. The purpose here is to achieve high sense of validity, completeness, and confirmation over the findings. So due to the time limitation, we are not going to discuss the rationale for these triangulation approaches in detail. But we are planning a special webinar series during the last part of this year in collaboration with Emerald to cover these areas, 5 areas, that is data triangulation, investigator triangulation, theoretical triangulation, multiple triangulation, and the mixed method design, that is between the method triangulation. As the summary, we would like to highlight that generally the research questions pave the way towards the methodology selection. In addition to that, researchers' experience plays a vital role. For instance, an individual trained in technical scientific writing, statistics, and familiarity in quantitative journals most likely to choose quantitative design. On the other hand, individuals who enjoy writing in a literary way or conducting personal interviews or making up-close observations may gravitate to the qualitative approach. The mixed method researcher is always familiar with both quantitative and qualitative approaches. Finally, researchers, they write for the audiences that will accept their research. The audience may be generally it could be either journal editors, readers, faculty committees, conference attendees, or colleagues in the field. The experience of these audiences with quantitative, qualitative, and mixed method studies can shape the decision made about the choice of design. With that note, we would like to wrap up the session today. Thank you very much for listening. We think that we have made a justification to the topic. So now we can go for the Q&A session. So one question, so I can take that one. Is there any difference, mixed method or triangulation? So here, I would like to emphasize that mixed method approach is the between the method triangulation. In other words, it captures both qualitative and quantitative approaches. If you are doing your research using both qualitative and quantitative approaches, we call it as mixed methods research or between the method triangulation. If you take triangulation, then it has 4 variant. That is data triangulation. If you can even use similar source of data, more than 2 similar source of data in conducting your study. We call it as data triangulation. We call it again as within the method triangulation. Within a single method, we are conducting the triangulation. In addition to that, as I explained, investigator triangulation, theoretical triangulation, multiple triangulation, those approaches are also there. Here I would like to highlight that most of the researchers, they use these triangulation approaches, even multiple triangulation, but they are not emphasizing the method they use under the methodology, which will provide them a clear originality in their studies. So another research question. One minute.
Yeah, in the meantime, I'll add something to what Dr. Devasiri mentioned. The difference between mixed method and the triangulation. Yes, mixed method, it's surely it should be mixed qualitative and quantitative, but triangulation it's possible within mono method. Like within the quantitative design, you can triangulate either data or investigator. So likewise, different versions are possible within the one single method. So that is the clear-cut difference. So it's mostly the academics get confused with that, but that needs to be like that.
Dear professors, if you allow, I can read the questions for you, please. Professor
So another question is there? Another question?
Yeah, another question is, can a research be exploratory, descriptive, and casual? For example, studying perception of vaccine and its impact on COVID spread. So it can research be exploratory, descriptive, and casual.
I would say no, like it cannot be all three. If it is mixing, that is possible, exploratory and descriptive. Say for an example, like how many people have been vaccinated. So that is descriptive part. And then why they have been vaccinated. So that is exploratory part. So in that sense, we can mix those. Then it's become like in the mix method, it's sequential explanatory design. So we can't
Okay.
say it is exploratory, descriptive, and causal. It is coming under sequential explanatory.
Another question is, if the researcher wants to gather the responses by open-ended questionnaire, which is qualitative in nature, and analyzes the responses by coding in an accountable way, what will be this method called? Mixed or
Mm.
quantitative? As the open-ended responses will be coded
Hmm.
numerically.
Yeah, I do understand the question. Like in some questionnaire, we put open-end question at last, and then those information we keep it open for the respondents to respond. So it's coming in wordings. Then after that, only thing what we can do is we are quantifying it in terms of the frequencies. We say that okay, so this one is being said in this many times. Just taking the frequency. So they are whether to take it as a qualitative or quantitative, it's matter what is the intention of putting that question. So within the descriptive research also, if your intention is to describe something, even by taking the information from open-end question, it's still coming under descriptive.
Okay. One is asking that can we get references to what is being told, deliberated, shared?
Yeah. So we will share those ones.
Yeah, we will provide the references. So when we are sending the certificates, along with that, we will send out all the references which we have used throughout the session. In addition to that, adding to Professor Amila's answer to the previous question, so if you are analyzing basically qualitatively taken data in a quantitative manner, we call it as crossover analysis. So by doing a crossover analysis, you can do the analysis, but as Professor Amila stated, the intention we have to clarify what is the intention of putting that 2 questions or 2 to 3 questions, so that if the intention is not achieved, no point of putting that questions and quantitatively analyzing that. Another question, Professor Amila, could you please highlight the research questions under qualitative research? Few research questions.
In qualitative research, as I said, the example that I have already mentioned in the presentation also, like how different retailers, how giving the priority for sustainable issues in their collaborative supply chain. So it's if the research questions go with how it's been happen, then it's qualitative kind of research. And also suppose that to identify the reason behind people to not to be in vaccine. So it's that question is also coming in the qualitative nature. To what are the reasons, or else what make them, what motives them. So if the research question in that kind of exploratory nature, then those are qualitative research.
Okay. One of the question is if it is necessary to include hypothesis in qualitative research paper. Is not it enough to include the research questions in qualitative research?
Yeah. So in terms of hypothesis testing, being aligned with the paradigm what we are in, whether positivism or interpretivism, normally we don't have a hypothesis testing in qualitative research. So instead, we are working with the propositions, make the assumptions, but we don't use the term called hypothesis testing. That obviously goes with the quantitative designs with the positivism.
Okay. One of the question is if I collect the data from some same sample 2 times and I compare it before and after results, can I take it as quasi experiment?
Yeah. It's quasi-experiment because so the effect that you have already manipulated. So you have taken sample that makes sure that you have two groups, experiment group and the control group. For the both group, first you check something. Say, for an example, you check the knowledge, IQ knowledge for both groups, the experiment and control groups. And then you do some IQ development activities for both groups. Then after that, you are again checking their IQ level and see whether that IQ development activity has any impact on the IQ, what they have already explored at the last moment. So it's quasi, but make sure, so long as it's quasi, it needs to have a control group as well, where the treatment will not be given. With that condition, yes, it's
In
quasi.
addition to that, yes, in addition to that, if you are taking the participant on a random manner, so then again it is coming under the true experiment method.
True experiment. Yeah, if we are assigning the participants like the subject, keeping the subject equal among the control and the experiment group, then it become, as Dr. Devasiri rightly mentioned, then it become true experiment. But it's very difficult in social sciences.
Thanks, professors. Another question is, how can researchers correct the disadvantage of sampling error in the survey method of social sciences?
Yeah. So in the survey method, of course, we are being handicapped with the sampling error. So the most of the people are thinking like, what should be the sample and how we derive it, and then what should be the size. So likewise, different books are giving different guidelines and some statistical equations also they are to derive the sample size. But I would say to minimize the sampling error, that's a matter like you have to follow the sampling process. There is a sampling process you can read from the books. So we give the references. So you have to define the population in terms of item, unit, context, time horizon. Then from that, you have to take a representative sample. So that is the key term there. So long as you can argue, as a researcher can argue, this sample is representing the population, no matter what size it is, then it is accepted for a survey and it will not handicap your findings.
Another question is coming from a scholar. He is asking that why is there an over focus on descriptive research design? Are researchers allowed to transform? What about the objectivity principle?
Yeah. So it's different groups of researchers where some they believe objectivity. So they say that the researchers should not involve of the knowledge that they are going to disclose from the research. So that is one group. And another group of researchers, it says no, objectivism is not something acceptable. So it's the matter how the person is interpreting the reality, because the research it's all about what is the reality. So whether we can have just one reality or whether it can have multiple realities. So it's depending on the question what you are handling. For certain cases, of course, you have to go with the objectivity. But for certain cases, either you like it or not. So that's why we discuss in the session also, mainly it's governed the research questions. Other than that, it's the researcher's interest, the availability of the time and those available the resources and the audience that you are going to speak. So I would say in nutshell, objectivism, it's okay for certain contexts, but not for all contexts. Depending on the research context and the research questions, you have to decide whether you are standing with the objectivism or the positivism or else the interpretivism. It's
Okay.
totally depends on the research questions.
Wonderful. One is asking for your opinion, and they're asking opinion that I wonder why case studies purely categorized under qualitative research, why it is not under the mixed method, because too much of the quantitative work for the case studies and play a little statistics on it. So what your opinion, why it is qualitative, why it is not mixed method?
Yeah. So the case study, as I said earlier, the case study, it's we are investigating a particular phenomena in different aspects, in almost all the aspects in terms of the history as well. For us to do so, if that is the nature of the case study. if that is the case, obviously you need to have exploratory kind of research, then it's qualitative. But it doesn't mean that we say that so long as it's a case study, we can't have quantitative analysis at all. It won't happen like that. Say for an example, so whenever we are taking the sustainable initiations for a particular manufacturing firm, then we take that manufacturing firm and see whether how that manufacturing firm has implemented the sustainable initiative, sustainable practices. So that one, within the case study, we can quantify. We can quantify, okay, this is the level of our sustainable initiation, the practice that as a company we do. Then somebody would say that it is the quantitative part. Then after that, within the same case, we can ask what motive your company to be sustainable, to initiate these sustainable practices. So that is qualitative part. If we are taking within the case study that qualitative and quantitative, then that is why that question put it into your mind, like why not it's mixed method. But though it is combining qualitative and quantitative, the intention is to see a very critical and comprehensive detailed understanding about that scenario, that case company that has initiated with the sustainable issues. From the holistic perspective, it is yet qualitative, but it's allow both qualitative and quantitative analysis within which as per the requirement.
Okay, please allow me to add a little bit into it, Professor Amila. Like my experience
sure.
has been that what is the purpose that you're using it? Are you developing it as a method, or are you trying to justify the new concept, or are you just using it as an example? So when you're using it as an example, it definitely cannot come under the mixed method. But when you are trying to develop your research paper by using a single case study or a multiple case study method approach, then only it will come as a mixed method approach. So
Yeah,
if you are
correct.
so if you will look at the papers like Johnson and Valney, who have developed the stage model, the knowledge model, all these stage model knowledge development model has been developed and established by using multiple case studies as a mixed method. So you can do that, but it will be called mixed method if you are using case study method to identify or justify the concept. If you're just using it as an example, then it cannot be, then it will of course remain qualitative or just an example. Hi, Professor Samant Priya. The next question comes from your side. It is that can you please suggest some good papers on the grounded theory?
Yeah, so we will suggest there are a couple of good papers which I can give along with the when we are circulating this the recordings. There are good papers, yes, especially in the social sciences, like with respect to experience tourism and with respect to the sustainability initiatives. So we'll do it.
Okay, someone is also asking for share reference for mixed method research.
Yes, we will provide that, Professor.
Yeah, that we will provide.
In addition to that, someone is asking, please arrange a session for scale development ASAP. So we will look at that when we are doing the next series of webinar. Professor Sudhir, we can look at that as well.
Absolutely, yeah, that's another area we can look at that. And we will see that if we can develop another series around or specifically related to the research questions and skill development. We'll definitely do that. I'm sorry, my computer got hanged and I'm not able to look at the number of questions ahead. I'm sorry.
So another question is that, sir, when the triangulation method is most appropriate to apply in the research? So as I stated earlier, there are multiple occasions where we could utilize the triangulation approach. I emphasize those under the data triangulation approach. Under the data triangulation approach, I said that in order to achieve confirmation, corroboration, validity, reliability, we can apply. For an example, if you think about dividend policy itself, what are the determinants of dividend policy? That is controversy, contrasting findings for more than 7 decades now. So instead of, using a similar methodology, you can even look at applying data triangulation approach, utilizing both survey and published data, and see whether there is a confirmation over the findings. If there are no confirmation over the findings, we have to investigate the research problem, the research design in terms of wording, coding, items, dimension, indicators. So in that level. So still, if there is a contradiction, what we can do is we can emphasize it as a new finding and new insight to the phenomenon. So there are instances where we can utilize the triangulation, because one, if you take again quantitative research based on published data, so we use ample of proxy explanations. There is an issue. We do not know whether these proxy explanations really explain the real phenomenon. In order to overcome that, we can use a triangulation approach in order to measure that such concept. So these are the occasions where we can use it. In addition to that, when it comes to the investigator triangulation, in order to reduce the investigator biases and all, so there are multiple occasions. We will discuss it in detail during the course of next quarter when we are conducting the webinar series on the triangulation approaches. So in addition to that, we have some more questions.
Yes, we have number of questions, but unfortunately my laptop got hanged.
So this is actually for question for us. When submitting a manuscript, publishers ask for referring the names of the reviewers. Is it mandatory to provide the names? What is the purpose behind that? So can you answer?
Yeah, of course I can answer the question. There are a few purposes. One is that we in journals host the similar debates or the common debates. Therefore, we try to know that who are the other scholars who are working in this field. So when a journal asks for the reviewer's recommendation, the objective is not that you just only help into the conducting the review process. We want to know that who are the other people who are working into the same field. So when in the future we get the similar paper or paper on the same domain, so that we have some references ready with us to whom we can send the paper for review and the process can be expedited. So simply it is to know that whether you know that who are the other people who are working in the same field in your field. One, so you are expected to know the community members, and second is whenever there will be another paper ready, we will have someone who work into the same field. So a database management
in layman language,
simple.
Yeah.
In a layman language, a database management exclusively for
Yes,
research
database
topics that
management.
you're working on. Simple.
Yes, I totally agree with you, Professor Sudhir. So in
Exactly.
order to manage a database with thousands of reviewers, because as journal editors, we know that there are thousands of papers are coming in. So we have to assign the reviewers for that. In order to do that, we have to do a database, develop a database. So that is the main purpose actually.
Absolutely. But one suggestion I would like to give here to all the scholars, and my suggestion is whenever you are suggesting reviewers, do not just suggest the people to whom you know. And many editors do not admire that. They rather would like to see that who are the scholars working in the same domain. For example, I'm working on nostalgia, so I should know who are the other people working on nostalgia, and I should recommend only the people who are working on nostalgia. So it should be like this, because we save the reviewers with the keywords of the research that they are working on. So always recommend the people who are working on the field in which you are submitting the paper.
Yes. Another important question that is actually that is for me, I think, Madam Sir, can sequential explanatory design put base with no theory, or is it only sequential transformative design are based on theory or theories? So here I would like to emphasize that sequential explanatory design, that is quantitative followed by the qualitative approach. So the first approach is quantitative under the explanatory design. So in order to proceed with the quantitative approach, there should be a theoretical support. There should be hypothesis. There should be a conceptual model in order to test. So without theoretical or model development, so you cannot proceed with that quantitative pace. Then you can confirm it using a phenomenological pace. So here it is again asking, is it only sequential transformative design? No, that is not sequential transformative design. So if you take sequential exploratory design, so exploratory design can be done without a theory even, because you are going to explore something at the first phase. So that is the answer for that. Professor Amila, do you have anything to say?
Yeah, so it's always make confuses like sequential, explanatory, and exploratory, as well as whether it's a transformative. So as per the Creswell, it says like, as you rightly mentioned, of course, with not with exploratory, but with explanatory, sequential explanatory. First quantitative and then qualitative. For that part, we are backing the theory. That theory is probably from that context. But here the transformative strategy, it's basically mean the basic theories, like theories we can see that the theories that relevant to particular context, as well as general theories. Say for an example, TAM model, which is a general theory, and say a reasons action theory, which is a general theory that can be used in different disciplines. So if your research is really backed by that kind of general theory, then it's coming under transformative. Otherwise, it doesn't mean that simple the sequential explanatory, it's out of theory. No, it's not. As Dr. Devasiri mentioned, it has a theory. It's a level where from where that you are getting the theory is the demarcate whether it's sequential explanatory or transformative.
Now the time is 2:25, so we cannot take more questions right now. What we could do is we can answer these questions through a mail. So we will write to you. We do have your email addresses and all. So there are few questions we were not able to answer due to the time constraint. So now I would like to invite Ms. Varunika Hettiarachchi in order to deliver the vote of thanks.
Very good afternoon. It's my privilege to have been asked to propose a vote of thanks on this occasion. I, on behalf of the Emerald Publishing, Gulf Medical University and Faculty of Management Studies of the Sabaragama University of Sri Lanka, and on my own behalf, extend a very hearty vote of thanks to the main speakers of this session, Professor Amila Jayaratne from the University of Sri Jayewardenepura and Dr. Jayantha Devasiri from the Sabaragama University of Sri Lanka. It was indeed an inspiring and insightful session. At the outset, I would like to express my profound gratitude to the Faculty of Management Studies of the Sabaragama University of Sri Lanka, headed by Professor Atula Nyanapala. Further, I would like to express my special gratitude to Professor Aslam, Chairman, and all other members of the Research and Publication Unit of the Faculty of Management Studies for their unconditional support. I would also like to express our sense of obligation to regional coordinators for their kind guidance for this event, and also in helping us in strengthening various mechanisms. In particular, the support rendered by Dr. Jayantha Devasiri, Senior Lecturer, Sabaragama University of Sri Lanka, Ms. Sangeeta Menon, Publishing Relationship Manager, Emerald Publishing, Professor Sudhir Rana from the Gulf Medical University, and Professor Kashif Said, Gift University, Pakistan. In fact, they support a lot in making this program a great success. Then, with the gratitude, let me also thank Ms. Disha Lakanpal, Regional Marketing Manager, Emerald Publishing Group, for the support rendered in making this program a great success. Further, with a great respect, I would like to thank all the distinguished officials from Emerald Publishing, Gulf Medical University, and the Sabragama University of Sri Lanka. Finally, I would like to extend my sincere thanks to the audience, all the senior professors, senior academics, visiting faculty, researchers, industry participants, partner university representatives, media presenters, and research students for their active participation. Thank you all again and have a very nice day.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful weekend.
Yes, thank you very much, everyone.
Thank
So
you
next
so much,
week,
professors, for sorry. Sorry, Professor Jayanta, please.
next week we are going to conduct another session. Please log in at 12:30 p.m. on next Thursday. And happy weekend. Thank you very much for listening.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was a nice one, and wish you all the best for a good weekend. Stay safe.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.